CMO's iPhone. I don't know. I can't intuit that. I'm happy to see you. Vicky, Graciela, Sarah's there. Wonderful. Desanti, Benjamin, Tali. Good. Frank, I'm so glad. So should we do our little refuge prayer? And there's Anthony and somebody with Anthony. Good. So should we do our little prayer, Rebecca?
Yes, Nicole.
Wonderful. So we think first, which one are you going to do? Just the refuge. So I can lead the refuge one, but if you're going to do the mandala, you can do that. Which one are we going to do?
The refuge.
Okay, well, I can lead that one. So put it up for everybody. Put it up for everyone, yeah. So we can, and I'll explain what we're saying. So we always remind, it's good to remind us, not just to blindly do these prayers in Tibetan, you know, it's two practical thoughts. When you get it up, I'll explain. Okay, so, all right. There we go. That's perfect. So as we can see, what it is, you know, this formal little statement, the first two lines are expressing, for those of us kind of who identify with being Buddhist, it's reminding us of our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings. And so it's not just mindless thoughts, because remember, for the Buddha, like we talked last time, for karma, every single tiny thought we have, it programs our mind. It sows a seed in the mind. So it's sort of like we're strengthening that reliance, if that's what we feel. And the second two lines are stating our purpose, our motivation for being here together, to listen to these teachings, to think about the meaning, so that we can take it as tools, because finally it is all advice. Whether we take it, that's up to us, but it is advice, you know. So what we're going to do is listen to these teachings today, so we can think about, again, this natural law that runs the world, that runs us, that determines our happiness and suffering, so we can take some tools from it, so we can develop our amazing potential, so we can be a benefit to other sentient beings. That's the long-term picture, you know. Good. Sangye charang soke chognam la jang chobadu dagni kyabsuchi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penchir sangye drupa shog. Sangye charang soke chognam la jang chobadu dagni kyabsuchi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penchir sangye drupa shog. Sangye charang soke chognam la Jangcho badu dagni kyabsuchi, dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki, drola penche sange drupa shog. All right. Okay. So again, reminding, you know, which takes us a while, because this karmic idea is sort of, even if we've heard about it, and we've been a bunch of hippies, we think, oh yeah, it's all karma. There are these, first, if we do think about it, we've got these very cliched views about it. You know, or we just think of it as an alternative way of punishing. You're a naughty girl, so you're going to get punished. Because I think we must have talked last week, because that's very strongly the view we have when we come to religion, spiritual teachings, you know, or even just ethics. You know, mummy says, do this, and you don't do it, you assume you're going to get punished. God says, do this, and you don't do it, you get punished. That dualistic view of punishment and reward is very deep in our mind, you know, it's very instinctive. Don't blame your Jewish mummy or your Catholic mother for this. It's something in our mind, Buddha says. It comes from this deepest delusion in our mind of ego grasping that causes this kind of dualistic view that we have. So when it takes us a while, when we hear the Buddha's view, you know, about karma, because Buddha sounds like Jesus, he sounds like your grandmother. He says, don't do this and don't do this and don't do this. And it's the same kind of feeling we get, you know. But what I think also, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I find it very fascinating that when we learn to drive a car, for example, you know, if you started writing down all the instructions just to know how to drive a car, you'd probably have hundreds of instructions, and many of them will be don't do this and don't do that. And you know very well, if you're driving on the freeway, you know there's right imprinted in your brain is you don't go into the wrong lane, you don't go too fast, you don't put the foot on the accelerator if your foot's on the brake. I mean, we have all these don'ts, but we don't think of it as moralistic. We don't think we're naughty. We just know it's instructions to help us become a better driver. So it's really common sense. But actually, the laws of karma for the Buddha are exactly the same. Hang on, sorry, I have to sneeze. based on Buddha's own experiential findings about what causes happiness and what causes suffering. I mean, so if we think of it that way, we should be so excited to read his instructions. Wow, you mean Buddha's got a method to get happy? Oh, I'm so happy. I mean, we pay millions of dollars for this kind of thing. But when we hear it like we do, as don't this, otherwise you'll get punished, then we're in trouble. We'll just become neurotic. And the fact is, it's really important, and I'm sure I said it last week, it's so important to remember that when it comes to fundamental things like, fundamental things like happiness and suffering, something as primordial as that, and then Buddha's approach to it, it's natural law. It's not him making things up, which is how we think about these ideas. Somebody's come along and they're the boss and they say, don't do this. If you do it, you get punished. That's how we think already, but it's not the way he's talking. So the Buddha, what he said, he's observing that this is a natural law. And so if like botany, so if botany is a natural law, no one owns copyright on botany. Even the clever botanists who articulated these laws, they didn't create, this is a crucial point about natural law. They didn't create botany. They saw it and presented it. That's Buddha. He didn't create karma. This is a massive difference. He observed it and then articulated these laws. And he said that he's found from his experience that things that we do and say and think program our mind and produce our future happiness and future suffering. It's a pretty straightforward concept. It's not complicated, but it's just so different from how we normally think, So if every millisecond of what we think and do and say produces the person we become, and then be a bit more detail, if every millisecond of what we think and do and say produces our happiness and suffering, and if you think about it, there's no third thing, happiness and suffering. There's either, Buddha, in fact, they talk about there's happy experiences, suffering experiences, and there are neutral experiences. Well, who cares about the neutral? We want the happy and we don't want the suffering. That's pretty clear. So then more detail is, what is it then? If everything we think and do and say sows a seed in our mind and programs us with that eventually manifests as our experiences. And if happy ones, we want the happy ones and we don't want the suffering ones, it's pretty evident, even if we've got the simplest understanding of karma. And the simplest understanding of Buddhist teachings about suffering, which is the suffering of suffering, which is when the bad things happen. Even if that level, we know we don't want bad things to happen. We know in this life we don't like being lied to, stolen from, bad-mouthed, being poor, having husbands who cheat on us. Simple level, forget even other lifetimes, forget even realms of existence, which of course Buddha does assert. We know we don't want suffering, it's pretty clear. So if we're prepared to trust, initially it's trust, you've got to trust your doctor. You haven't studied medicine. You don't know if that vitamin will work the way it does. So you're trusting your doctor, not because they're cute, but because you've checked up on the doctor and you have confidence now. Same with us with the Buddha. Then we decide we're going to use these laws of karma as the basis for living our lives. And the basis of it, as we talked last week, the first fundamental basis is for your own sake. We find this hard to accept. It sounds like selfish, but it's intelligent. I have to know about good nutrition for my sake before I help other people with nutrition. No one accuses you of being selfish by taking care of your own health. They call you intelligent. We're talking our mental health and our happiness and suffering long term. So it's intelligence, not self-centered. So everything we think and do and say, our future experiences, and if right now today is the future experiences of past actions, therefore, and if mind goes back and back, and Buddha says this, then we must have millions of seeds on our mind stream. We must have millions of karmic seeds that haven't yet ripened. They're sitting there latent, waiting for the conditions to ripen. Yes, as happiness, great, but hey, what about the suffering ones? We do not want those. So purification is like putting atomic bombs under your negative seeds before they ripen. It's so sensible. So in the first levels of practice, hang on a sec. As we've talked, the first level of practice is, abiding by the laws of karma, learning to control our body and our speech in order to protect ourselves from future suffering. And given that our mind goes back and back, and given that we don't want future suffering, then the first, and as Lama Yeshe says, the most urgent, first thing to do is at least stop sowing more negative seeds. That's reasonable. If you learn about botany and suddenly realize you're able to control what goes on in your garden, you have to, the very first action to do is stop sowing more weeds. Stop doing negative actions. Very clear. The next level of practice, and same in your garden, if you've already got lots of seeds planted there and they're going to ripen as weeds, you don't want them to ripen as weeds, so you better put atomic bombs under them, poison under them to kill the negative seeds before they ripen as suffering. Pretty clear. That's purification. So you could say if we're trying to be a Buddhist, and that we have a reasonable practice of living in vows, living in ethics, good ethics. Did we discuss vows last week? No, we didn't, I think.
Not in detail.
We'll do it today. We'll do it today when we talk about purification. Okay. Then we need to the next level of practice. The next one is, and this is why Lama Zopa says we're insane not to do this practice every day. Not just because there are past seeds from past lives or seeds from this life that haven't yet ripened as suffering, but just because of the way we are, because we're still in samsara, every millisecond of today, even if we're nice people, we haven't realized emptiness yet. We haven't cut all the delusions yet. So lots of actions we do mightn't be the heaviest actions. We mightn't go around raping and killing too many people, but just the ordinary actions we do, driven by attachment, driven by aversion or annoyance, we're popping negative seeds into our mind. So it's like we've got to do a bit of weeding at the end of every day. We've got to do a bit of purification at the end of every day. As Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do it every day. And the only way that makes sense is when we understand the logic of karma, not in some superstitious, fearful way. No, there's no benefit in that, you know. It's like self-respect that we would want to do this kind of practice, you know. So, okay. There are there's this, you know, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, in all the traditions, all the lamas praise hugely this particular, to do this practice called the 4 opponent powers. It's 4 steps, basically, in the framework of a particular meditation where we use the Buddha Vajrasattva. So this is from Tantra, actually. A lot of the practices, because Tibetan Buddhism is completely rooted in all of Vajrayana, many of even the earlier practices that we do, even though we mightn't have yet taken an empowerment, still are rooted are within the tantric approach. So this means we need to explain clearly, try to understand a little bit what a Buddha is. So we see pictures. You go to Tibetan Buddhist places, you see these statues and these ladies and gentlemen, all kinds of interesting shapes and sizes, and it's really a bit confusing to us. Then we see a statue like one behind me. So basically that's the Buddha of India 2,500 years ago in the form of a monk. And that aspect of the Buddha, it's a representation of controlled body, speech, and mind, which is particularly expressed in this first stages of practice. All the first stages of practice, like I call the wisdom wing, all the first stages, controlling our body, controlling our speech. You go to high school, go to the middle scope, you control your mind. That's the whole level of practice that's represented perfectly by the Buddha, that shape of the Buddha, that aspect, peaceful, subdued, perfect ethics, and subdued mind. Now you've got the Mahayana path, and there the aspects the Buddha takes is what they're calling the Bodhisattva style. You see these kind of coming from the Indian, all these statues, the male Buddhas and female Buddhas and peaceful Buddhas and wrathful Buddhas. But basically the main Buddha in Tantra, if you have like a family tree type thing, you know, the actual Buddha is, the word Buddha actually refers to the enlightened mind. In Sanskrit, they call it the Dharmakaya. It technically means truth, body, but just keep it simple. It's the mind. Remember, mind for the Buddha is not physical. So when you fully develop your mind, when you've become a Buddha, your mind, like Shakyamuni minds, like anybody else who's become a Buddha, your mind pervades the universe, your consciousness. There's nowhere where it's not. Because if your mind is not physical and it's now finally unencumbered of all delusions, then how can it not be wherever there is existence? That's how they talk. You've got infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, infinite capacity to help others, you know. So this mind of yours, that enlightened mind, that's what they call the Dharmakaya. But what good is that to people like you and me? We need to be able to see a person and hear a person in order to get the advice for us to become a Buddha. So the Buddha, out of compassion, manifests in 2 kinds of bodies. That's the first one. That's known as the Nimanakaya, which means emanation body. And that's the body of the Buddha, the supreme emanation body, they call it. It's the body of the founding Buddha. So the next one of those in our universe will be called Maitreya. So now that's fine for us. We can see and hear the Buddha, and it's his teachings in this time of the world that we're studying and practicing. But there's another form in which the Buddha manifests in the Bodhisattva path, within the Vajrayana of the Bodhisattva path, within Tantra. And that's then, if you've got this family tree, you've got the Dharmakaya, the enlightened mind. Then you go down and you've got the two types of body that Buddha manifests in. One is called the Nirmanakaya, that's this one. The other one's called the enjoyment body, and that's the one that's in the Bodhisattva path. It's a subtle light body. It's looking radiant and beautiful with gorgeous clothes and blah, blah, blah. And it's from the Vajrayana. And that body, that Buddha, only the high Bodhisattva yogis in their meditation can see. They're the ones so what that is, the main Buddha there is called Vajradhara. We must see his name all the time in the prayers. That's the tantric aspect of the Buddha. It's like the Buddha mind gets dressed up in two different shapes and forms. That's one, and then Vajradhara is the other. I always remember when I first went to Copan and I was in the publishing room, I used to do the editing and you remember the old-fashioned days when we did the duplicating with the rodeo and the Gestetner machine. Old people like you and me will remember that. Instead of before we had photocopiers. And I loved doing all these prayers, and I kept coming up with this person called Vajradhara. And I wondered who he was. And I said to Lama Yeshe, who's Vajradhara? And he said, and I don't know if I told you this, but he said in the sweetest way that Lama Yeshe always said things. He didn't make it complicated. He said, oh, he's the biggest Buddha, dear. And I was so happy I like the biggest Buddha, It's Vajradhara, the Vajrayana aspect of the Buddha. And it's a subtle light body in the Bodhisattva style, very beautiful. Now, under him, you've got the 5 Buddha families. Akshobhya, Amitabha, Vairocana, 5 of these. And each of these represents, and this is the part about the Vajrayana, if he represents body, subdued body, speech, and mind, the Vajradhara and then the 5 Buddha families, all these hundreds of other Buddhas all fit into those 5. And they're basically all representing different psychological qualities that we either want to cultivate, like Chenrezig, Tara, or purify. Some of them are like wrathful. So one manifestation of Buddha's mind is wrathful anger. Another manifestation is purified attachment. So all these different Buddhas, and there are hundreds of them, they fit under these 5. It's like a whole psychological map. So Vajradhara is the main boss Buddha in Tantra. Now, there's a white aspect of him, and that's Vajrasattva. So it's the main Buddha in Tantra, but he's particularly related to emptiness, because the actual purification, this is why I couldn't do this morning's class, because I double booked myself. I had a course with the Paris Center, and I do this all the time, double booked myself. So I've just finished the Paris course at an hour ago. So we're discussing emptiness. This is the point we discussed this. So Vajrasattva is a particular aspect of particularly related to emptiness. And when we realize emptiness is when we finally purify everything. But the practice here is where we sort of put atomic bombs under the weeds and we prevent them from ripening. That's the main thing you're doing with the 4 opponent powers. You're lessening them, you're calming them down, you're getting them out of the way so the flowers can grow, so your virtues can grow. And eventually when you've purified your mind completely, well, no, when you've begun that process, when you first realize emptiness, then you're really ahead of the game, So we've got to got to calm all this rubbish down and stop them from growing. That's the main thing, so we can grow our virtue and grow our goodness. Because if our garden is choked by anger and attachment and negativity ripening, there's no space to do anything. Just like our garden, we've got to get rid of the weeds, so the flowers can grow. Okay, so all the lamas in all the traditions really praise doing the 4 opponent powers in the framework of visualizing this particular Buddha. So we'll do the practice. We'll describe the practice like that. Yeah, okay. So the 4 opponent powers, or sometimes the 4 powers, they call it. Well, if it is our mind, then our body and speech that are all the bits of us playing out our actions, so-called negative and positive. If everything we think and do and say sows seeds in our mind, then everything we think and do and say, we can use the same process to uproot those seeds, which is what purification is. So there's no karma we can't purify. I tell you, when I worked with people in prison, I still do, but when I was really running the project, that was the most moving thing among people in prison, especially if you've murdered people, because it seems so absolute, doesn't it? And the depression and the sadness in the people's minds, especially if they weren't monsters, that it's kind of life happens, People die when there's guns in this country. It's not surprising. So there's a sense of hopelessness. And so when they heard about the purification practice, that they weren't innately bad, that there's no karma you can't purify, it was a revelation for them, you know. And that's often the tragedy, I must say, in this country. The prison is pretty intense, but everywhere it's not so cool, but here is quite bad. And there's a lot of vindictiveness. You know, I remember there's a fellow I know in prison in New York State. He's the longest serving person, I think, practically in the whole country, but if not in New York State. When he was in his mid-20s, 58, 59, maybe 60 years ago now, he killed somebody and he raped and killed a girl. Okay, whatever the reason, doesn't matter. I mean, whatever, he did it. And he was given life sentence, but with parole. At a certain point, he could get parole. So he has had this extraordinary record in prison. He's done his PhD, he's done all this study during an Attica riot. I remember in New York, I'm back in the 70s, and if people remember that, I was an old radical lefty activist at the time, so I remember this incredible, terrible riot that took like 30 years to expose as the most shocking behavior against the prisoners, is what I'm saying, you know. And it was written about Attica, it was at Attica. He was there, he helped in the hospital, everything he's done, all his years in prison, got accolades. He's hardly had any number against him, but because there's a group of people in that state, around that city, because he did in fact kill this person, but they're never going to forgive him. They're never going to let go. They determined he's evil and he's going to suffer in prison until he dies. So now he's kind of losing his mind and he's going to probably die in prison. He's gone for a parole 27 times or something. So that's that kind of vindictiveness that we all do on ourselves. I did a bad thing. I'm a bad person. We do it to ourselves and we do it to each other. But there's no karma that can't be purified, you know. And so I think it's so amazing if we can have that view about ourselves, then we can have it for other people. Okay, some people are psychotic and they won't be able to change. That's true. Incredible suffering people, but not everybody's like that. And this is why I'm so happy. A friend of mine, another friend of mine on death row in Kentucky, a Catholic, he's going to eventually get out, you know, for whatever reasons. So it's so marvelous when you can see that people have proven themselves, you know. But this attitude of once you've done something wrong, we do it to ourselves. I'm a bad person. This is the worst against ourselves. This is the worst, most concrete view, you know. So the whole purification process is so powerful. And I think of it as like, I'm not trying to sound corny. It's a really powerful practice of becoming your own friend. Because and this is the thing that I really want to stress. You can do it with all sorts of things, with holy and Sanskrit words and ring your bell and all this stuff, but it kind of makes it very remote for us unless we've got a lot of confidence in the process. That actually it's a really powerful psychological process of you owning responsibility, regretting it because you're sick of suffering, having compassion for others, doing the practice and determining to change. It's a totally psychological process and it's so beneficial, I tell you. I mean, it's very powerful if we do it properly, really powerful. Because it's your mind. There's nothing intrinsic here. Negativity is also empty of existing from its own side. Negativity is also a dependent arising. It's not set in stone, but it's what we tend to think with guilt or anger, you know? No way. So it's such a powerful one to do for your own sake, and then of course for others. But it's marvelous to finish the day. So as Lama Yeshe said, you know, we create negativity first with the mind, so then we can purify it by creating positivity with the mind. It's such a powerful practical thing to do, you know, and not just mindlessly like a bit of religion, but to do it really sincerely because you're the person who created the karma and you are the person who purifies. This is where it's really powerful to remember, and this is the difference. There's a crucial difference between the view that you have if you have faith in a creator and the view that you have if you have confidence in the Buddha. Because Buddha isn't a creator, therefore, and this is the point, the assumption we have of religion is it's a creator, like we must have talked last week, and God is the boss. That's perfectly reasonable if that's the view you have. So the purification practice for a Catholic, when I was a Catholic, my first step is the same. I had to acknowledge that I did things wrong. But then what would I do? I have to go to God, to rely upon God, my creator, and beg God to forgive me. Why? Because God's forgiveness is what purifies. This is a huge difference. Now, you could ask Buddha to forgive you, and he would. He's a nice guy. But that's not what purifies. That's really like I think in our lives, we misuse The whole logic of forgiveness. Forgiveness is huge. And we call it, it's a big thing for us in our culture because I think it's coming from our Christian background. I'm not criticizing it, but please hear my point. So if I've got a boyfriend, who's my boyfriend? Okay, Marcus, I'm sorry, you're my boyfriend. Okay, so there's Marcus, my boyfriend. Let's say I'm badmouth Marcus. I'm annoyed with Marcus. I'm rude to him, and he's a nice, patient guy. And then I'm driving to work, and he's driving to work, and I'm feeling all bad, all knotted up with guilt, right? Bad for Marcus, we know that, but mainly it's guilt because I'm really scared he'll reject me. This is what we don't see in the ego, and that's what we've got to see, this attachment to being loved by Marcus. So it's actually mainly for my own benefit. So I ring him up, Marcus, I'm so sorry, darling. I really didn't mean it. And I'm waiting for him to say, it's all right, Robina, I still love you. And I've kind of got egos going, oh, phew, I'm off the hook again. What a relief. That's how we misuse forgiveness. So the fact is, if he's really my friend, he wouldn't just keep saying, yes, I still love you, Robina. He would say to me, Robina, I do love you, but you can't just keep asking me to get you off the hook. You've got to make some changes. You've got to decide to stop bad-mouthing me. And that's the point. We can misuse forgiveness really wrongly. It's sort of putting responsibility on Marcus to make me feel better. That's not enough. Can you hear my point, people? It's very powerful. So with the Buddha, there's got nothing to do with forgiveness. There's just no question of forgiveness. Buddha's job is not to forgive you. That for Buddha is a bit like going to your doctor and you know, you go and you confess that you smoked cigarettes because she's told you not to, and you confess that you did, and then you beg her to forgive you so that you can stop getting cancer. Now, actually, we'd laugh at that, wouldn't we? Because we know perfectly well my doctor can forgive me, but in the end, the only thing that really purifies is the work that I do to purify my mind and stop smoking. There's no shortcut. Forgiving me is not helpful. Now, if you have faith in a creator, please, that's your view, but it's not the Buddha's view. You've got to understand this. This is why it's us engaging with ourself to change our own mind. It's very powerful psychologically. I really mean it. So, okay, let's look at these 4 steps. The first one. Well, actually, they're taught in different order, but I like this order best, okay? And I think I call them the 4 R's. I don't know if we all call it that. I can't remember, but I got that from a friend years ago in Australia, the 4 R's. Good way to remember. So the first one is called regret. So it's a simple English word, okay? Now, this is really important. This is amazing. This is so helpful. I remember some fellow asked His Holiness at a teaching, what's the difference between what we're so used to thinking, which is called guilt, and this thing called regret? And the way he answered was so simple, you know. And this is profound. We've got to work at this. It doesn't come naturally because we run automatically to the attitude towards guilt. So this is how he said it. He said, with guilt, you look in the past and you go, I did do this and I did do that and I did do this. But then you go, and I'm a bad person. Now, we love that attitude. We run to it automatically. And that is natural consequence of ego grasping, where we over-exaggerate our badness. Now, another attitude we have, which is very similar, you know, if I'm mad at Marcus, I will say, you did this, Marcus, and you did that, and you did this. And then I'll conclude, and you are a bad person. Well, what do you think that's called? That's called anger. So guilt is anger, exactly the same, but the object is ourself. Now, we love guilt. We run there. No one taught us. It's the natural consequence of this ego grasping, the root delusion in the mind, you know, so where we over-exaggerate everything. So if I've got arrogance and pride, I'm over-exaggerating my importance. If I've got low self-esteem and self-hate and guilt, I'm exaggerating my badness. And we run between these two all the time, or we do it to other people. It's just a mistake. So we've got to be very analytical and very clear with ourselves. So what are we going to regret? Oh, no, I didn't finish. So what His Holiness said about what's regret? He said the first part of it is exactly the same. You look in the past and you go, I did do this and I did kick the dog and I did badmouth Marcus. But then you have to change and you go, but what can I do about it? Now that's proactive. That's intelligent. And this is why the Lamas always talk about, they use the analogy, or the Buddha, I think, uses the analogy of poison. It's a really simple analogy. You know perfectly well if someone just says, oh my God, Robina, there's poison in your dinner. We know the meaning of the word poison. We know that if I leave it in my body, it will cause me terrible suffering, and I don't want suffering. So my immediate response is regret. Oh my God, what a fool. I can't believe it. I didn't realize I did that. Quick, what can I do about it? That's the attitude of regret. It's incredibly wholesome and intelligent, but we just don't do it. We have we have these mistaken views. One, it's guilt, or the other one we say that we think regret is. And I know I've had to talk about this such a long time with some people, and maybe we're going to have a discussion here. It's so important. We hear it as, another one is, we hear it as saying, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. Well, you could say that about your poison, couldn't you? You could say, oh my God, I ate poison. I shouldn't have eaten poison. Well, that's just a variation of anger. There's no difference because there's no action. Listen to it. There's no action involved. You're just sitting there in your misery thinking you're a bad person. What good is that? Well, we know this destroys us. This is so common, you know. We don't know what to do with this. This is what's so tragic. Well, there's a wonderful saying in Christianity. Don't blame the sinner, blame the sin. And that's exactly the point here. So it is true, I did badmouth Marcus, and I did kill the dog, and I did kill this or do that. Or I did, in my case, I always talk about this because it's always a good example. Women are always happy I talk about it. When I was 23, I had an abortion. So, okay, I didn't know then. And this is the example of regret. Not, I'm a bad person, not, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or even another person keeps saying to me, it took a while for them to understand. This is very fascinating. But he said, but but why would you regret it? Because at the time you didn't know any better. Well, of course, that's exactly the point. When I had my abortion, I didn't think of it as killing a person. I just knew I didn't want that baby when it came out 9 months later. And now, with the Buddhist view, I recognize the mind would have gone into that fetus at the time of conception. It's a human being in there. I decided to kill it. Okay, there's karma between us, and that's a really interesting point, especially when you think about killing, because you get very overwhelmed by shame and my friends in prison, for example. But there's a karmic connection, you know. That fetus went to my womb. They created the cause to get me as their mother, but they also created the cause to get killed by me. That's a fact. In straightforward words, you know. So it's an interdependent scenario. So when I say I regret it, I'm not saying, oh, I'm a bad person. I'm not saying, oh, I shouldn't have done it. I'm not saying, but I didn't know any better, so why should I regret it? No, that's so foolish. It's just like saying, you know, when I smoked cigarettes when I was younger, when I was completely ridiculous, I smoked up to 80 Marlboros a day, not all the time. But I didn't think about cancer. I never thought about the consequences of smoking. I just didn't know. I was ignorant. So when you think you go to the doctor 20 years later, and then you think, oh my God, you know, I shouldn't have smoked. What good is that? You did smoke. What's the point of saying I'm a bad person? You simply smoked. Then you recognize I did, but I didn't realize what I was doing to myself. So it's like humble. It's like kind to yourself. I do regret it because I didn't know any better. I'm ignorant. But now, because the consequences are coming, I have to fix it. So it's not just some abstract action you're regretting. It's because you sowed a seed in your mind. So in my case, with the abortion or with the killing or bad-mouthing Marcus or whatever, it sows a seed in your mind, which is kind of multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, waiting to ripen as my future suffering, which we'll go into when we talk about the purification process. So I don't want that result. So I'm glad I went to the doctor so I can nip the cancer in the bud, which came from my foolishness of smoking cigarettes. It's just the analogy, you know. So it's common sense and it's self-respect. Regret is a really intelligent, self-respectful attitude. Not guilt, not blame, not I'm bad, none of that. It's very sensible, but we've got to think of it carefully, you know. It's easy to say the words, oh, I regret, regret, regret. But if you don't give it meaning, what's the point, you know? So it's so important, this first step. So you acknowledge, I did do this and I did do that. So that of course, when you do the practice every day, you remember some of the things you remember. But given that you've been living many lifetimes, Buddha says, given you've got this long life now, and we don't remember 99% of what we've done, then of course the seeds are still there. Just because I don't remember killing that rat when I was 6 or 20 with anger, let's say, I forget. But the seed is in there, multiplying away, waiting to ripen. I don't want it to ripen, baby. So regret's a very wholesome attitude. And it's based on, this is how we'd say it, based on compassion for yourself, because you don't want future suffering. I think this view takes time to cultivate, because even though we might say we're Buddhists and we so-called believe in karma, we don't think it through, you know. It's a very practical process. In the same way that we know when it comes to the body, every tiny thing you put in your mouth won't just disappear. It's going to impact upon the body that you develop. I mean, the body of today is the body we produce from the food we put into it, isn't it? So karma is the same. It's about the mind, though. So regret's really important. So you'd start with just today, then you think of the main things, especially the things that, like, you know, at the end of the day, and I had a fight with Marcus, I had a fight with the boss at work, and you're all tangled up in the heart, you know. So you unpack it and you just look at the action. I did do that out of my ridiculousness. I did do that out of my attachment and my anger. And it also demands you being very honest with yourself, not trying to get off the hook, you know, not trying to blame Marcus for it. He got his role, I've got my role. I'm trying to take responsibility for my part of it. Let him do his thing. Often in relationships, it's a bit kind of like, you know, if I'm prepared to change, you better be prepared to change, Marcus. I'm not going to change if you don't change. That's really heavy. You've got to be brave to own your own stuff. Let Marcus do what he wants, you know, that's up to him. That's pretty tough, but it's very powerful. So then, of course, you can say, I regret all the things you've done in this life you don't remember. Why? As I said, because you sowed the seeds and they're going to ripen as your suffering. You don't want suffering. And you say the words, I regret it because I don't want future suffering. Then you could even say, if it makes sense to you, and I regret whatever I've done since beginning this time with my body and speech to harm sentient beings, because I don't want the suffering to happen, because I don't want future suffering. That's the plan. That's regret, you know. Very wholesome, very sensible. So before we go further, are there any particular questions about this point? Because I know it seems to often bring up lots with people. I don't know. If they're not, that's just fine. We'll continue. We can ask questions later, so we want to think about it. So the second one is naturally coming on from this one. Whom can I turn to? What can I do about it? Quick, where's the doctor? I don't want poison to sit in my system and cause me suffering. Quick, whom can I rely upon? Where's my doctor? That's the next step. And it's headed reliance. Now, there are two parts. The first part is relying upon the doctor. So who's our doctor in this framework? Of course, it's the Buddha. You know, he's our doctor, assuming you're a Buddhist. So what we do at this point, we would visualize, we would imagine above our crown the Buddha in this particular aspect of Vajrasattva, okay? The Bodhisattva style, looking very beautiful, very compassionate. And if we've got a spiritual teacher, we would imagine it's their mind manifesting as Vajrasattva for my benefit. This is a really important component, you know. So, okay, and you could do a formal little refuge prayer there. But honestly, my feeling is the attitude here, just like if you've taken some incredible poison and you discover some amazing doctor with antidotes for that poison and he lives in Iceland, you won't care. You'll go first class. You'll be so happy to find that doctor. And this is a really interesting point. We never think of the Buddha like that, like incredible. I can't believe I found a person who's got methods. But that's how we think. I mean, you look at the number of people who have incredible sicknesses and they find one special guy in the middle of some little city in Ohio or something. You'll go there, you don't care how long you stay. You feel like you've found a jewel, a person who can give you the methods to heal you. So we get that when it comes to the body. That's the attitude when it comes to the mind. And if we've chosen to be Buddhists, then as we practice, our confidence and our delight in having the Buddha and his methods will really genuinely grow. Not just like some abstract religious concept, oh yeah, take refuge, blah, 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 you know. It'll be sincere the more we practice. Of course it will. So here, refuge, and you visualize above your head, Vajrasattva. And if you've got your spiritual teacher, this is a really crucial one, you know, that we can only, you know, that goes according to our pace. We have really confidence in that person as the Buddha, you know. That's really excellent. So you visualize above your head. The first step, reliance. You found the doctor. The second part of reliance sounds curious initially. You know, the way they say it, we rely upon suffering sentient beings. It sounds a bit abstract for us. What does that mean? Well, it's pretty clear. At this second part of the practice, we're trying to cultivate compassion. So what's compassion? It's this empathy, or this you see a person suffering and you can't bear it. Oh my God, look at that suffering. That's unbearable. That's compassion. Now, if you never met a suffering person, it is not possible to have compassion, is it? You can't possibly have compassion. It's really logical. So it's in that sense, that the way they say it, the Lamas, that we rely upon suffering sentient beings. We need suffering sentient beings. They're like the grist for our mill to cultivate compassion. And the more suffering we see, that's we're on the Bodhisattva path, instead of getting depressed about it, it gives you the courage to never give up developing this compassion and this wish to never give up being a Buddha. So it's a very powerful attitude. So the second step, you now think of those you've harmed. I think of Marcus. I think of how I hurt him. You've got to be sincere in this, not defensive. The first step, regret, is for your own sake. Now I'm regretting for his sake. And I'm thinking, I must purify for his sake too. You've got to think it through and feel the person, not just make it abstract. Then I think of that fetus. I think of that baby, the woman, the person, I don't know who it was, this being who came to my womb and got a human birth due to their past karma of non-killing. But then another track of their karma of killing caused them to be born in my womb, and we had strong karmic connection, a strong history together, where I must have, she or he must have killed me, so the karma ripened and I aborted them. That's karma between the two of us, you know. So I have compassion for that fetus, and I especially have compassion for that poor fetus. It was 12 weeks old, and the doctors and nurses were very kind. In England, I was a hippie at the time. I remember the National Health there had made abortions free in 1968. And I felt I felt kind of like lucky, you know, that I didn't have to pay a penny. These nurses were so kind to me. And then what happened was I left the hospital, but I had to go back again because they hadn't cut out the fetus properly. They'd mangled the poor little 12-year-old fetus. So I think of that now, and I have even extra compassion. The poor thing, you know, imagine this poor little body in there. It's got a mind. It's a real person. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, you women, but this is just the way my approach to it, you know. I realize it's karma between me and that fetus. They suffered, so I have extra compassion. And then I have compassion also for the doctors and nurses who killed the baby for me. This is all to do with karma, you know. We've got to confront these things. Sometimes it's very painful if we've lived in denial all our lives. It's quite hard. And the way I'm saying it is quite blunt, but this is reality, you know. So don't be ashamed, don't be guilty, have regret. Out of ignorance, I did that action. I'm creating cause for myself to suffer, and I harm this being. So this compassion level, I have incredible compassion for that person. You know, they created the cause to be killed, but I did it. So you take responsibility for your part. Like in my relationship with Marcus, I don't blame myself for his rubbish. That's his rubbish. I take my responsibility for my bit. You know, that's really important. So then you have compassion for the creatures you killed, the ants you killed. If you're in the army, the people you killed, or whoever it is, you know, think of it. The fish you went fishing. Fishing is very normal in our culture. Out of ignorance, we did those actions, not understanding karma, not thinking that we were causing suffering. We didn't do it maliciously, just karmic imprints, you know. So this is now you have compassion. You regret first because you don't want suffering. Now compassion is because you don't want them to suffer. So you think I must purify for their sake. Now, if we can as well, this next level of compassion is very powerful. If you can have compassion for those who've harmed you. This might be quite heavy for us. Maybe we haven't forgiven our father for abusing us yet. That's okay, leave it there. But the reason with karma, the logical reason to have compassion for your daddy if he abused you is because he will suffer in the future for his actions, unless, of course, he purifies it. That's the reason for compassion. That's the main reason for compassion, because we all are harming ourselves, you know. Third step, the remedy, or known as the antidote. You apply the antidote to these actions. Hang on a second, please. Okay, so the third one, the remedy. So in this context, we're doing it as a meditation. So we now have the Buddha above our crown, and we now do a visualization of purification. If we have time, we'll do it briefly at the end of the session. And as we recite the mantra of Vajrasattva. So let's look at how this is a good antidote. How is imagining purifying, and how is saying some Sanskrit syllables, how can that help? We've got to think about this, you know. Well, the key one about the first part, when you imagine nectar coming from the Buddha, you imagine washing out all your negativities. It's very creative, you know, but think about it. It's your mind. What's your mind doing? Imagining purifying all your negativity. How can that not be a stupendously powerful thought? Every thought counts. Now, the trouble is, in our culture, we have the exact opposite view. We say, oh, it's only in the mind. We say that. That really means we're a bit demented. We actually don't realize that thoughts count. I mean, I'll never forget this. I remember in France years ago. No, not in France. What happened? In my New York Times one day, years ago, I remember in my iPad reading this story about this woman in Brooklyn who got into her husband's computer and discovered he was part of a cannibal website. And they were preparing to kill her and eat her. She was quite shocked. She didn't just call the police, she went to the FBI. I thought it was so funny. It's not funny, but it's funny. So this is what's hilarious. This is what's incredible. His defense lawyers, their main position was, they were allowed to think this. They're just having fantasy. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, that's how insane we are in our world. As Lama Zopa says, and I'm sure I quoted this, really, we believe in our world, the vast majority of all humans, he said, on this planet, and that includes all the super intelligent ones, really have no idea that what goes on in our mind plays any role at all in our lives. Now, we know from this that Buddha is literally and exactly the opposite. I mean, literally and exactly the opposite. So it takes time for us to get used to this, because we're so used to having our little secret world of special fantasies that as long as no one else knows, it doesn't matter. That's how demented we are, because we don't think thoughts matter. But every tiny thought sows a seed. And that's when we can own that and recognize that. We become very transparent to ourselves. We become very sincere, very accountable, we become very grown up. It's very powerful, you know. We can own things. It's incredible. So visualizing, imagining, purifying, because you really wish to purify. So it's the strength, as Lama Yeshe puts it, as Lama Zopa puts it, it's the strength of your confidence in this attitude of imagining that is what purifies you. Your mind is what purifies your mind. It happens to be that you're merely using the Buddha. We tend to think that God does the purifying, and if you're a Christian, it is true. God's forgiveness is literally what washes away your sins. This is an amazing view. I mean, when I was a Catholic, I loved that idea. I'm not criticizing it. It's powerful, but this is not the Buddha's view. You have to do it. This doesn't mean you can't imagine the Buddha loving you and the Buddha helping you. That's fine. Doctors help you, but you're the one. The doctor gives you the medicine, but you've got to take it, baby. So the strength of your own wish to purify, as well as the strength of your regret and the strength of your compassion and the strength of your regret, that entire process is what shifts your mind, is what puts atomic bombs under the karmic seeds and the tendencies. Then, so you do also now, as for the Sanskrit, all the Lamas will say, and all the great scholars even before, would say that Sanskrit sounds, which is really the alphabet. I mean, there's this wonderful practice that I love to do. It's a practice called purification. Speech. You purify your speech. It's literally this lovely visualization of visualizing the on your tongue the different Sanskrit syllables, the vowels and the consonants, which are what make up the mantras, and you visualize nectar filling you and you're purifying. It's so delicious, you know. Purifying the speech. It's so wonderful. We have now in the center here in North Carolina. No, sorry, wrong city, wrong town. Where am I? New Mexico, sorry. In Santa Fe. And then Charmaine, the director here, and Mary, this SBC, they're getting more and more program. They're creating more and more programs. As we've started a thing, 7 a.m. meditation. We're having 10, 20, 30 people come every morning at 7. And now we've just started since Friday. We did the first one. We're doing Bodhisattva just for 30 minutes. We have 30 minutes in the morning, express meditation, and we're doing 30 minutes. And we had 26 people came on Friday night at 9 p.m. So people want this, by the way. Just hint to you, Rebecca. Hint to you, Nicole. We're finding people want to, especially with Zoom, around the world, people are hungry for this. We're having 7 o'clock morning meditation every weekday, and now we're doing Bodhisattva at 9 p.m. It's amazing. It's very interesting. People want 30 minutes, that's all. Very quick. Anyway, I'm not meant to be selling the center, but just telling you. What was I saying? I forget what I was saying. I'm raving on here. So yeah, there's these 4 steps, and it's our mind that does it. So the 4th one, oh yeah, why Sanskrit? That's right, Sanskrit, why it's so powerful. That's what I mentioned, because we sometimes do the blessing with speech purification, the morning meditation one. I love doing that. So yeah, the Sanskrit syllables, all the lamas would say it's the most profound, most subtle sound. It's blessed in its nature. I don't know how, whatever. And so all the mantras, and the Tibetans have never translated the mantras. They leave them all in Sanskrit. They translated everything else, but they left the mantras in Sanskrit, you know. There's something super powerful about them. And this is what's an added interesting point, by the way. I like this. The Vajrayana way of describing how we're constructed. The universe consists of sentient beings, minds, and then we've got physical matter. And the physical matter of the universe is made of the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water. This is how I used to talk 1,000 years ago, you know, but this is still the Chinese system, the Ayurvedic system, and the Tibetan medical system. There are 4 elements, okay? So this is the point now. We've got gross body, this bag of bones, and gross mind, which is our sensory. Then we've got subtle mind and subtle body. So this is the Tibetan medical system. You've got this 72,000 subtle channels coursing through your entire body, a subtle nervous system. And then coursing through those channels, all these different wind energies, prana, they call them. They studied 12, 14 years the Tibetan medical system. And this is the nature, this is the basis of health, similar to the Chinese, you know. And our states of mind, all the different mental states, are inextricably linked to those different wind energies. So you go to your Tibetan doctor, and she'll feel your pulses, and she'll feel the imbalance of certain wind energy, and she knows it's connected to your attachment. So this is why you've got berserk attachment, you're out of control, you're having anxiety attacks, and the winds have gone berserk. It's like a storm inside you. She'll feel other pulses, she'll know that's related to your anger. So all the different states of mind are linked to their own wind energies. So as Lama Zopa puts it, in the Kala Chakra Tantra, in all these different tantric texts, he says there are these detailed descriptions of the intimate relationship between internal and external energy. And internal is the mind, and external is the physical wind energies, as well as the external physical world out there. And this is how karma works. So remember, I said, even just being angry, having angry thoughts, first, it continues the habit to be angry, but what it does is it pollutes those subtle wind energies, which eventually karmically manifests as your sickness. And in turn, even more over many lifetimes, it impacts upon the external elements. And that's how you have the imbalance of the elements: pollution, COVID-19. This is from thousands of lifetimes, even the physical world out there, the imbalance of the elements and the sickness and the mouth and too much rain, too much fire. All of this is the result of thoughts, starting with thoughts and then speech and actions of sentient beings over thousands of lifetimes. So every thought does count. So Sanskrit, so when you do mantra, sound, wind is the wind energy, and the wind, the purest wind energy is mantra. So just by saying Om Mani Padme Hum, what are you doing? That sound is purifying your wind energy and purifying your mind. So it's kind of quite practical. It's logical, not mystical, you know. But of course, it's based on the Vajrayana model of the universe, not on the brain business. That's a different model, okay? So it's marvelous to do these mantras when you buy into the meaning. Om Mani Padme Hum, just 4 syllables, but it means compassion. Tara's mantra, power, action, confidence. Manjushri's mantra, you know, wisdom. All these mantras. And this Bodhisattva mantra, the 100 syllable, is related to interdependence and emptiness, which is the main purification. The 4th step, Pavanka Rinpoche says, the most important. Resolve, the determination to change. So as Rinpoche says, regret is the first one, and if you don't have that, the rest don't follow. You got to You've got to acknowledge you did this dumb action. You've got to regret it because you're sick of suffering. Then you think, whom can I turn to? The Buddha, and you get the method. Then you have compassion for those you harmed. Then you do the practice to purify. Then you determine to change. This is a psychological process, so intelligent, so practical, so simple. Every day. Finish your day with it. Marvelous. Now you're going to ask me some questions. It's now, whatever the time is, nearly 4, 2, 3. Okay, one more hour to go, isn't it? Okay, now ask me some questions, please, people.
If anyone has any questions, you can put them in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask Venerable Robina, please.
Yeah, please do. Anybody at all. Nothing from anybody? Everything's clear? Graciela, have you got something, darling?
Yes, yes, yes.
Good, talk to me.
Yes. Could you say more about the antidote? Okay. Could you say more about that? The remedy.
The third step where we visualize.
Yes.
Okay, so you mean explain more the technique?
Yes, please.
Okay, good. I can do that, certainly. I can certainly do that, yes. So there's many approaches there. First of all, Graciela, the antidote in general is every day. You know, so if you're regretting bad-mouthing Marcus, then the antidote is to stop, is to be kind to Marcus, the direct opposite. If you're regretting lying, obviously in your ordinary daily life, the antidote is to tell the truth. If you're regretting killing, an ordinary antidote in daily life is to help sentient beings, maybe save a few worms, maybe go and help sick people. They're the immediate and obvious antidote, and they're necessary in our daily lives, Graciela. But this particular practice, and all the Buddha, all the Lamas would say this, any practice we do that involves the Buddha, because of the power of enlightened beings, it makes the practice 1,000,000 times stronger, more powerful for our minds. So, and also I think it's, because it's, anyway, never mind. So the actual practice, how we do it, I thought I'd do it before we finish. We'll take about 15 minutes. We'll do it very short, just to give the flavor. But what you do in this particular approach, visualizing Bodhisattva, and there are variations of this, but I'll just explain it this way. The first thing you do is you imagine there's above your crown the Buddha, your Lama manifesting as the Buddha, which makes it more personal for you. So then you visualize, and there's different ways of doing it. One way is you visualize from Bodhisattva's heart, he sends very powerful, like a hose of energy, like nectar, that arcs from his heart, he's above your head, arcs around and enters your crown, and then forcefully fills you. It's very creative, really. You just be creative with your mind, wanting this powerful nectar coming from the Buddha, filling you completely and forcing out. There are 3 levels of visualization. The first one is you visualize it forcing out through all the lower parts of your body, like filthy liquid, all the imprints, all the seeds you've ever planted since beginningless time, from the harm you've done to sentient beings with your body, all the killing and the bad mouthing and the harming, and especially if you have confidence we've been an animal in the past, we must have slaughtered so many other animals out of all our fear and our suffering. So all the karmic seeds of all the harm we've ever done with our bodies, stealing, punching people, kicking the dog, killing, all these things, imagine, all driven out by this powerful hose of nectar, forcing out through all our lower parts of the body, all the imprints in the form of like filthy liquid disappearing into space, not one atom left. Something like that, Graciela. Do you understand? And the more creative you can be, the more, mentally creative, the more enthusiasm you have. The next one is you visualize this time, Guru Bodhisattva very compassionately sends this nectar again, arcs around, enters your crown, completely fills you. But this time it forces up to the top of your body all the imprints of all the harm you've ever done with your speech. So we clever humans, that's us. I mean, animals shout and yell at each other, but we're the clever ones with our speech. We lie, we badmouth behind backs, we use harsh language, we just rabbit on about nothing. All the harm we've ever done with our speech to harm sentient beings is driven out like this filthy liquid. Just like Lama Yeshe says, when you turn on a tap in the sink, all the junk in the glass comes to the surface. Like that, you visualize it all pouring out, disappearing into space, not one atom left. Then the next level, you now visualize Guru Bodhisattva sends kind of beams of light. Now, I don't think beams of light can bend. I've got no idea, but we pretend they can. So you visualize these beams of light arcing around, entering your crown, and then instantly the light hits. Just like Lama Yeshe says, when you turn on a light in the room, instantly the darkness is dispelled. So you think instantly the delusions, the ego grasping and the attachment and the anger and the fears and all the nonsense that informs the actions we do to harm others, which in turn harm us, all of this instantly purified, all delusions instantly purified, full of this blissful white light. And as we do these visualizations, we recite the mantra. It's like that. Yes? Good. Thank you, Graciela. What else, people? What else? Nothing?
Venerable Robina?
Yes, sweetheart.
Yes, I have a question about the regrets. So I find that I have many, many things when looking back to regret. And when doing this every evening, what things do you revisit? Or after you've regretted something, do you move on and not revisit it and you just regret other actions? So I'm thinking like certain things maybe in the past that were maybe have a heavier things. So I guess what I'm asking is, when is it actually purified? Like how do you know, or do you just keep focusing on those past actions?
It's a bit like, it's a bit like you've got a 200-foot tree and you're trying to chop it down. You just don't do 3 chops and think, oh, now I'll chop somewhere else, another tree. You've got to keep doing all these 4 steps are the components of the whole process that's called purification. And so you have to regret. I mean, if you could remember every single thing you've done, of course you should regret it, because that's I'm going to go into this in a minute, because each of these 4 steps purifies specifically the 4 ways that karma ripens. So I'll explain that in a minute. So it's helpful to remember today, certain things today, because they're fresh. Then you think in general things in this life. I always remember my abortion, but don't forget that's just one time I killed one baby. If I've had countless lifetimes, and as an animal, I've killed millions of beings. I mean, one whale, honey, opens its mouth for one morning, one mouthful of one breakfast in its 40-year-old life, and 30 million little beings go in. Now that's really good at killing. So you just remember certain things and you say, I regret from the depths of my heart because I don't want the suffering. And then you say, and whatever I have done since beginningless time that I don't remember, of course I regret them because I don't want future suffering. So psychologically, it's that experience. Be specific with some. You don't just stop. How can you stop regretting? You want to regret anything you've ever done since beginningless time until eventually they've all gone, honey. But you can think of certain ones at certain times. Do you see my point?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Because I feel like I could spend just hours.
Yeah, good. But also because we've got vows. If you've taken vows and got commitment and samaya with your lamas, they're the very powerful things to regret, because we're not perfect. We're not great saints. We're going to break or weaken our vows. So you've got to purify. You've got to genuinely regret breaking your samaya, breaking your vows, weakening your vows, because you don't want to be left out of the Dharma. You want to continue meaning the Dharma. You want to continue having your mind clear so you can continue to practice. That's a major one if you've taken vows and things, to remember that. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you very much.
So now, okay, let's look then at each of the 4 steps and what each of the 4 specifically purifies. This is so helpful. Okay, so like we talked last week, there are 4 ways in which our actions of body, speech, and mind can ripen in the future. This is natural law. And analyze your life and you will see exactly. This is a description of your life. Now think about your life. 1, in our case, we've got a human body, okay? We won the lottery. We didn't really, it's not good luck, it's hard work. This is the fruit of the first way that karma ripens, which is the fully ripened result, in our case, of a virtuous action, specifically of non-killing. So really specific, intentional decisions to not kill, practiced, no doubt, as Lama Zopa says, in the framework of keeping vows of not killing, and I'm going to talk about that today, was the cause of how come one of our delicious little, virtuous karmic seeds of non-killing was triggered at the time we stopped breathing in our past life. So how amazing that one of those was triggered. That already, before we even stopped breathing, that already triggered the seed to be ready to jump into action, which caused us already, it was already planned, in our case, to go to our present mother's human womb a few weeks later, by the time we left that body, left the bardo, and they hopped into bed with daddy, and then you ran to the egg and the sperm. So that's really specific. That's the fruit of our past non-killing karma. We created the cause to go to that mummy and that daddy. So yes, strong history with them. Just like that little fetus, that little consciousness went to my fetus, went to my egg and sperm, but then, I killed it so I'm getting to that one. So the second way our karma ripens, and now these next three play out in this life. This next one is called intentions or tendencies, similar to the cause. Well, we've all got a personality, haven't we? We've all got tendencies, good ones and bad ones. We kill and lie and steal and love and compassion, good at music, good at football, good, you name it. Your entire personality traits, the entirety of your personality. Where did this come from? Not your mummy and not your daddy. This is so clear for the Buddha. You can share what you've got with your mother and father. So why have they got them? Because they have done those before and they got born in this life with those tendencies. Why do you get born with them? Because you have practiced them before. So that your tendencies, whatever they might be, psychotic or saintly, good at football or good at music, it doesn't matter what, they are tendencies in your mind from having done those before. So that's the second way your past actions ripen in the present, and you get these tendencies are triggered before you even stop breathing, at the same time as the karmic seed that determined you go to your present mother's human womb that's already set up in place. The third lot of karmic seeds that get triggered at that time are called your experiences, similar to the cause. I'm sure we talked about this last week. And your experiences are what happened to you at the hands of others. Think about your life, like we did last week. 1, you've got a human body. 2, you've got tendencies in the mind of this human person. 3, you're seen and treated by others in a particular way. So you either got people who are nice to you or mean to you. There's really no other option. You've got all the other lot who do neither. They're the strangers. So that's called experiences similar to the cause. And they're all the fruit of your past actions. The fourth one is even the way the very physical world itself impacts upon us. And that's called environmental karma. So like I said last week, one simple example of non-killing. It ripens 1 as a human birth, as one example. 2, you'd wake up in this life with no thought to kill. 3, you won't get killed and you won't die young. 4, the physical world will nourish you. The food will be delicious, the water will be tasty, the air won't harm you, you'll have good health, you'll be fat and healthy, and whatever you eat will be fine for you. That's the 4 karmic results of non-killing. So we can see in our life, we have a mixture. You can be born in this life with no tendency to lie, but you might get lied to all the time, or people mightn't believe you or accuse you of lying. You can see this all the time. You might have an incredible tendency to be generous and to never steal, but you've got the experience similar to the cause, another bank vault of seeds from past stealing, where you can never make ends meet and you never get your debts paid. No matter what happens, you can't get credit at the bank, because that's the experience similar to the cause of past stealing and past generosity. Everything we experience, good or bad, main cause, our past seeds. So now, for these 4 opponent powers have a particular function of purifying each of the 4 results. So the first one is really fascinating. Regret say, let's say, regretting lying. Let's say, okay, now let's say at work, your colleague accuses you of lying. Now, you know you didn't lie. And you know you go mad trying to work out, why doesn't she believe me? How can I convince her? And nothing you do will change her mind. We go crazy. That's the karmic result of your past lying, like 47 lives ago, whatever, to that particular person. Karma's personal. So what do you do with it? Instead of going crazy and blaming, and it's not fair, when you do your purification practice at the end of the day, the first step, regret, you say to yourself, well, whatever I must have done 42 lives ago, lying to this person, the karmic result now is my not being believed. So you take responsibility for that and you regret. You say to yourself, whatever I must have done, that lying I must have done in the past, that is now ripening as my experience similar to the cause, I regret that from the depths of my heart, because I know I don't want this suffering. Right now, I don't want it. Well, then don't be surprised it changes. Don't be surprised she starts to believe you. This is powerful. And this demands we take responsibility. So like in Amy's case, let's say she's been beaten up or whatever. I have no idea what her story is. It doesn't matter. But let's say she's, this person's been mean to her, abusing her, whatever. So instead of being the victim, this is intense. I mean, people can freak out when they hear this. This is a person a couple of years ago heard me say this, and she's now convinced that I was almost abusing her by telling her that she's the cause of her own suffering. So we really can, it's hard to hear this properly, without being self-abusive. But if Amy's really trying to take responsibility, this person might have did what they did, but if she hadn't created the karma, it would not have happened. So when you do the regret, you regret within the depths of your heart, whatever you did 47 lives ago, that is the cause of this person doing it to you now. Don't be surprised it shifts. This is really powerful, I tell you, if we can hear it properly. We can hear it properly. That purifies. So regret purifies it happening to you. Very powerful. Second, reliance, which is the refuge and compassion. Well, I'm not sure, but I think this especially seems to be the compassion one. This purifies having compassion for those you've harmed, relying upon the sentient beings whom you've harmed in order for you to get compassion, that purifies environmental karma. They always use the analogy that the ground you fall down on that harms you is what you rely upon to stand up. So here, the very sentient beings we've harmed, we now have compassion for them. Somehow I don't quite get this one, but they say it purifies environmental karma. The third one, the actual antidote, the actual purification, Bodhisattva, the visualization, the remedy, that purifies the lower realms karmic result, the main karmic result of being born in the lower realms. The fourth one is obvious. The determination to change, the determination to not lie, the determination to not kill anymore, the determination to not badmouth Marcus anymore. Guess what this purifies? It's obvious. The tendency to keep doing it. So all four steps, each specifically purifies all four results. So it's so powerful. So if you'd like to ask me some questions about that, I'm very happy.
Venerable Robina?
Yes.
Hi, can you understand me?
Who's talking? Who's talking to me?
Lama.
Yes, sweetheart, talk to me.
Hi, thank you. I was taught with the 4 R's, similar words, basically what you said.
Yeah.
I have often heard, and I think this might be a mistake. Many people I've heard when they ask, do you know the 4 R's? They say the first one is refuge.
Oh, no, that's fine, darling. That's very typical because Lamas teach it in a different order. And that's perfectly fine. But so it's perfectly up to your mind, because this, I just happen to like this process. I find it quite logical. You've got to first own the mistake. You own you've eaten the poison. Then you think, well, whom can I turn to, which is refuge. So it's up to you, sweetheart. There's different order, darling. Different Lamas do different order. Lama Zopa does a different order.
Yes, he does. But
yes.
So
same thing. Doesn't matter. Go on.
Okay. The next, what I wanted to ask was, of one of the 4 R's, okay, if you've taken refuge, there's yes, regret. I heard one about to request.
Sorry, darling, I don't understand.
Request.
What's that mean? A request whom to do what?
You're requesting to either your Lama or the Buddhas to help you purify. Is that
That's
correct?
refuge, darling. That's refuge.
That's
I mean,
okay.
refuge. You know, you rely upon a doctor. Part of the process is, please, doctor, please give me medicine. That's request. Of course, that's part of refuge, isn't it?
Okay.
So as much as you want to make that step as real as you like in your own thoughts, that's marvelous. It's relying upon a doctor, requesting them to give you the method, not requesting them to forgive you. They
Right.
might forgive you.
That's
That's not what purifies. And I think we're used to thinking of it as forgiveness. That's not
Yes.
the issue.
Okay, thank you for
I
explaining.
mean, it does help, doesn't it? If you go to your doctor and she shouts at you if you smoke the cigarettes, it makes you a bit nervous. So it's nice to say, oh, don't worry, darling, Robina, it's okay. But that doesn't purify. You've got to now stop taking cigarettes and do the purification.
Correct.
You see, we're a bit like we want to get off the hook. That's our view typically. We don't want to be punished. So we tend to have that a bit childish view of it. That can all be part of it. There's nothing wrong with that. But in fact, another point is, sorry, Lamo, we can see, you see, in Buddha's teachings, there's the natural law, the fundamental law of karma is natural. It's not Buddha's law, but there are Buddha's laws. So when he started his organization of monks and nuns, or not really nuns, but monks, then he started up little vows. Well, don't do this and don't do that. You could say that they are Buddha's laws, and you would need to ask him to forgive you if you did those, because he made them up. It's like Mummy said, make your bed, and you don't make your bed. You can ask Mummy to forgive you. That's reasonable. Or if you badmouth your boyfriend, you can ask him to forgive you. That's good, but it's still, then you then do the purification. And we need, if we have so much self-hate, it does help to be forgiven, but then we've still got to do the work.
Yes.
You get my point?
Yes, I do.
And it feels helpful. We've got a faith in our Lama and we visualize the Lama as our Buddha. It helps our own self-hate and guilt to feel that they do love us and forgive us, if you like. There's nothing wrong with that. But the real understanding is your own mind, these 4 steps are what purify you. Are we communicating?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
Good,
Thank you.
darling. Good, I'm
Thank
so happy. Thank you. What else, people? Anything else?
Hi, Venerable Robina.
Yeah, talk to me.
I find it really useful to think of, like you said, creating negative karmic seeds through your body, your speech, and your thoughts as taking poison. And so I have a 2-part question. The first part is there a hierarchy in what's more poisonous? Are actions more stronger than speech, stronger than thoughts? And an
Absolutely.
example.
Absolutely. Sorry,
Okay.
yes.
An example would be, is it worse for my mind to engage in sexual misconduct by going to, let's say, a strip club when my partner doesn't like that, or thinking of killing babies, which is...
I understand. No, I really think we can think of a hierarchy. I think it's no question. You know, in general, that's why the very first level of practice, Buddha simply exhorts us to refrain from 7 little actions. I mean, there must be millions of negative actions if you look at all the sentient beings in the universe. So why does Buddha choose these 7 little actions? They're in order of badness. I mean, not badness, but order of heaviness. So killing is always the heaviest one. Taking the life of, and I think we instinctively know that. That's why killing is always the heaviest thing to read about. Wars are so the heavy thing. When people die, it's quite heavy. So killing is obviously driven mostly by anger. So it's clear if there's so much anger in the mind that you actually use your body to smash a person to death. That's pretty intense energy. Would you agree with that? Now, clearly, lying just doesn't have, it might be pretty complicated lying. I mean, people are really psychotic in how they lie. I mean, you know, but it's just not as intense. You can see the energy. It's not nearly as heavy, although it's pretty harmful. So it's fairly evident, I think. So the things with the body are the worst. So killing is the worst. Then the next one is taking things from others, taking things that belong to others. And the next one is, well, no, the second one is misusing your body driven by sexual attachment. Now, normally, that, you know, that's usually more of a technical thing, like don't do certain things and don't cheat on your partner. But interestingly, His Holiness, always when he take refuge with him and he does the vows, he always gets it to be don't rape. And if you look at the world, and even include the animal realm, based on strong attachment, animals must be raping each other all the time because sexual attachment is so intense. Look at what humans do to each other with their bodies when it's really heavy. So clearly, the heavier, the stronger the mental state, the more violent the action with the body, and indeed then the speech. Clearly, there's a hierarchy. You can see it. But then, of course, you can also see, you can have a person, let's say, who, you know, who maybe has a really, really deluded mind. Like one of my friends on death row, who's a Buddhist, he tells me about one fellow there whom I know. I've been seeing him for 20 years. When I've been going for 25 years, I don't know this man's mind. He's never talked to me. He comes to the classes and he looks very laid back and relaxed. And my friend Mitch said, Robina, he thinks of torture all the time. Now he's on death row. His friends aren't going to let him torture them, so he just has to live in his mind. This is the intensity of the delusions. And this, in the first level of practice, Buddha is not even exhorting us to even watch the mind yet, just the beginnings. He's got his 10 non-virtues. The first 3 are at least don't kill, don't misuse your body based on attachment and sexual attachment, and don't take things that don't belong to you. Then the next 4 are don't lie, don't badmouth behind backs, don't use abusive language, and don't just blur about nothing. And the last 3, I put it this way, it's just the beginnings of his looking at our mind, and he gets us to at least refrain from the heaviest level of the 3 main poisons. So he doesn't just say don't be attached, he says at least give up this intense, nightmarish, constant craving. If it's for sex or food, try and calm that down, because that's so much torture, and that's the beginning of the actions of body and speech. And then he exhorts us to at least refrain. The first one actually is the heaviest levels of anger, which is determination that the person suffers. Why do you think people do so much harm to each other? Because that leads to the harming with body and speech. So at least refrain from the heaviest level of anger. And the third one, at least refrain from the heaviest level of the root delusion, ignorance, and at least try and calm down this insanity that's going on in this country. I mean, it's everywhere. It's everybody's mind. All these conspiracy theories and completely demented, fundamentalist, narrow-minded sexism and racism and jingoism and believing that people are Satanism, all this demented, narrow-minded, ignorant views, which are rooted in ego grasping. So at least calming those down. So yes, of course, there's a hierarchy. But then, of course, there's an infinite number of variations in terms of the karma you create. This man on death row, he's not harming anybody. It's all in his mind. So look at what he's doing to his own mind. So therefore the karma can't be that he'll get tortured, because he's not torturing anybody, but his mind he'll be reborn as pretty crazy. And eventually, of course, he will carry those things out eventually. So yes, it's very intricate, and indeed it's very hierarchical. But you've got to know your own mind well, because some person who kills might not be with much anger, but maybe they abuse with their mouth with 10 times more anger. So it's a combination of the action, the motivation, the tendency, how strong they do it, how often. There's many factors that all play a role in knowing exactly what karma is created. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you. And the second part, it may seem obvious, but does the hierarchy work in reverse in terms of what's most beneficial for my mind? So for example, the most beneficial would be to save human lives. But let's say I don't do that. I just think about saving a human life versus I refrain from gossiping. Which one is more beneficial?
I understand exactly. Everything you decide not to do is marvelous in itself. It's just great. But as an antidote, it depends on how strongly the other one is in you. So even for you, if you lie all the time, and even just a moment of really thinking I mustn't lie, that's very powerful for your mind. So it's so intricate. But, you know, clearly any actions, so anything you do just in your mind, that can't ripen as a physical experience, because it's just your mind. It'll lead to you doing it eventually. So, you know, but anything this is where, okay, now I think we discussed last week, but I'll have to say it again here, for, you know, I forget now, but that when you think of a complete action, this is the point, a complete action has 4 things in place when you do it. And that's the one that is the cause of the type of rebirth you get. So if we're thinking of a negative action like called killing, in order for the action of killing that you do to be a seed that will be triggered at the time of your death, that will program you to be born in the lion's womb, that has to be very strong. One, an object has to be there, an action, a being has to be there, the first of the 4. Let's say that mouse. Second is your mind involved in doing it, and there's several things there, but the 2 main ones are, one is the thought, I will kill the mouse, but 2, the main one that flavors that intention, that gives the power to the action, is your reason or your motivation. Let's say it's really rage, you hate mice, and you even want it to suffer. You know, really heavy anger, and you couldn't care about it suffering, and you're even glad it suffers. That's heavy duty anger. So the stronger the heavy motivation, that's what colors the whole action and makes it so negative. The third is you do the action. And the 4th is the mouse is dead. That's a complete action of killing. And the motivation is the one that makes it the heaviest. You could kill a mouse with compassion. You're really misled and you think by killing the mouse, its suffering will stop, and you're in tears of compassion. That's exactly the same thing. There are 4 things in place, but look at your motivation. So the motivation makes it negative or positive. So that'll be a complete action, the first one. And that if you keep doing those actions, and that seed will grow and grow in your mind. And then because that's your habit, when you die, that'll trigger and you'll run to a lion's mummy's womb. So if it's not the complete action, a complete action, let's say you try to kill the mouse, but it gets away. That's not a complete action. It can't ripen in exactly the same way, but it doesn't mean the tendency to want to harm and the anger don't play a role. Of course they do. They all will bring their own results. It's incredibly intricate, and it's a natural law, you know. Everything you think and do and say will bring results. That's it, in one way or another. Do you understand? Does that make sense?
Thank you. It's very contextual.
Well, that's how, so it's answering your points. You're happy?
Yes.
Good, darling. I'm so pleased. I'm glad. And keep remembering it's a natural law. It's sort of like we're trying to describe botany. We're trying to describe the intricacies of why a rose grows. It's very intricate. And you know that the more intricate you can become, I mean, look at these people now who do genetic botany. It's so intricate. It's so subtle. And this karma's like that. And eventually when we're Buddha, we'll be able to see all the intricacies of it perfectly. Until then, it's just, all we can do is at least learn the rules and learn the laws as well as we can, you know. And as we progress, we'll get more and more intricate in our capacity to know the ins and outs of our actions, because we know our mind better and better. Do you understand? Good, darling. Thank you so much. It's 5:34 in Florida. Okay, what other questions? This is all very helpful. Thank you.
Hi, Venerable Robina.
Hello, sweetheart. Talk to me.
I have a question regarding if all karmas are kind of weighted similarly. For example, maybe something you did as a child or an adolescent is weighted similarly to as an adult when maybe you should know better.
It's the question of the motivation. The key is the motivation, darling. That's the key to understanding the weight of an action is the motivation. If you think about it, an object being there, a mouse, whether you're 5 or 55, the object is the same. It's a mouse. Second, intention is bare bones, is simply, I will kill the mouse, whether you're 5 or 55. Then there's a motivation. That's the factor that determines the character of the action and your mind involved in it, and therefore the result. The next one is you do the action. The next one is the result. They're kind of bare bones. So the real one is in the mind being involved, not even in intention, is just bare bones. I will kill the mouse. The strength of your habit to kill, including for a 5-year-old. But what makes it heavy or not is the motivation. So even a 5-year-old can be a psychotic. We don't like to think that. But I remember hearing about one of those serial killers years ago. Can't think of his name now, doesn't matter. He was quite well known in America. And he seemed to have many different good qualities. As a Buddhist, when I looked at him, he was quite reasonable. He was a fairly nice fellow, but he had this awful tendency to want to harm and torture. Now, of course, he didn't know why. He was a little boy. He talked about how he was compelled to torture the little creatures. Now, that's intention and motivation. He doesn't know why. But it's past karma, darling. And that's the reason to have such compassion. He didn't know why he wanted to do it. It was so impulsive, so intensive. So as he got older, it would have been 1,000,000 times worse because he couldn't resist it. And that's how we are. We can't even control our eating cake. Look at us. So that it's the intention, it's the motive. That's everything. The intensity of the wish to harm, the pleasure. He got pleasure from torturing because that's the habit. That's how karma works. You know, the stronger you've done the action, the more you've done the action, the more you're attracted to doing it and the more pleasure it gives you. That's very scary for us, but this is very logical. And that's whether you're 5. As you get older, it's more. But I mean, still, we tend to think, oh, you're an innocent child, you don't know. The karma is way more powerful than that, you know. Do you understand, darling?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Thank you. Who else, people? Anything else? Marcus?
Venerable Robina.
Yes.
I have the third way that karma ripens is experiences similar to the cause. What was the fourth one exactly?
Environmental.
The environmental, the
Let me
actual
explain.
situation that you're in.
More than that, Marcus, I'll explain. Let's say killing, let's say you're a nice guy, so the intention, the tendencies, you've got no tendency to kill. You're a good guy. Okay, let's just say that. You've got no tendency to kill. But it's pretty amazing on this planet because most people kill. We've got to consciously think about it. But let's say you've got the experience similar to the cause of past killing. You're going to either get killed or you're going to die young. That's as simple as that. They're the two results of the past experience of killing. Now, look at COVID-19 right now. Look at the number of people dying young. They're not getting killed mostly. No one's killing them. But people who get killed in wars or in gangs or in the streets or car accidents, that's the other results. It's either you die young or you get killed. That's the experience similar to the cause of past killing. Now, that fetus in my womb had that karma. They didn't even get a chance to get born yet. They died even before they're born. That's the experience similar to the cause of having killed in the past, that they died young. But they also had the second one. They got killed by me. Now, a regular miscarriage would just be the first part. They didn't get killed. Their karma just ran out. Do you see what I'm saying? That's experience similar to the cause. Now, in your life, let's say, the environmental result of karma means that the world you live in harms you. The food is polluted. The water is polluted. The air is terrible. Or you get sick and you've got weakness and sickness and you can't eat anything. You've got allergies. Now, people, do you understand what I said? That's environmental karma. The physical world that should nourish you actually harms you. Do you get my point? Yes. That's environmental karma, result of killing as well. But you might have both of those, experience and environmental, or you might just have one. Maybe you're sick all the time, but you live till you're 97. So one is the environmental, the physical world, the air, the food, the water, the thing. Now, if you think about it, it's so fascinating right now with COVID-19. It seems to me the physical world for all of us now includes human beings that we're not even able to touch because we might get poisoned by them and die of COVID-19. So that's environmental karma for those of us who don't get killed, but we can't even touch other people. We could get poisoned by them. I mean, that's really intense. The whole world has got the environmental result of killing now. The physical world itself is really dangerous to us now. We've got to remove ourselves from each other. We can't even breathe on each other. We can't touch each other. The physical world is poison, but it happens to be human beings in that physical world who could impact upon us. It's the environmental result collectively of the whole world of past killing. You with me, people?
Yes. Also, Venerable, your thoughts on the reason for having a mental illness like schizophrenia, depression, what would have caused that to be a present result of that karma?
I understand. Well, first of all, let's take depression away, because I know the way the world is, the modern science has found some chemicals in the body that if you can reconfigure them, it'll help the depression lessen. So we're prepared to call that a mental illness now. But, you know, that's just the materialist view of putting it. The broader point from the Buddhist perspective, Marcus, and this is not me being funny, I say this, but I'm meaning it seriously. The extent to which we have any attachment, any anger, any depression, any jealousy, any low self-esteem, any anxiety, all the normal things. You get my point, Marcus? Stuff that we think is normal that we would never call mental illnesses. Are you with me, Marcus? Ordinary, the way Buddha talks, they are actually for the Buddha mental illnesses. Anger is a mental illness. Jealousy is a mental illness. Anxiety is a consequence of attachment. It's a mental illness. Depression is internalized anger, that's all. But we've labeled it a mental illness in the West because we've got medicines and all the guys can get rich on it, you know. I mean, it's so arbitrary. Now, schizophrenia and heavier ones like that, where you've got serious mental suffering, there's still all the same components, but very serious levels of it. And they're all the result of what we've thought and done in the past. I mean, a person who's paranoid all the time and believes monsters are coming at them, that's the result of being angry all the time and being harmful to sentient beings, that you believe there's harm all around you. I mean, look at all these conspiracy theorists believing that Biden is a pedophile or something. These insane, laughable ideas. This is from uncontrolled anger, uncontrolled angry mind all the time criticizing people, where you believe in the most ridiculous things you can ever imagine. We wouldn't call them a mental illness, but they are mental illnesses, except we call them crimes. We're going to lock them up, you know. Do you understand what I'm saying? Even racism and sexism that are incredible, they are mental illnesses, Marcus. They're intense ignorance, and that's mental. But when we see, our trouble is in our culture, when we say mental illness, we tend to think the poor person can't help it, so we feel sorry for them. You get my point here? But if you say a person's angry and they've got a mental illness, we get too confused because we want to be mad at them. So it's a really interesting point. So the Buddha's whole point is we're all mentally ill. It's just a question of degree. So some people are really seriously crazy. Some people think they're Mozart all day. Some people strip their clothes off and go crazy. I mean, we can see people really, really suffering. It's all from the same causes, from past actions and the intensity of those actions and the intensity of the negativity of the mind. Do you understand my point? And it's quite complex, of course, but it's explained in the same way. Now, the added component there, Marcus, is that this is very much the Tibetan Buddhist, the Vajrayana Buddhist, because the Buddha asserts that there are many kinds of realms of existence. You must know that. You've got the animals, you've got the spirits. And so a lot of spirits, they're disembodied beings who are born in this type of rebirth, like ghosts. Ghosts are one lot of those. They're real sentient beings. It could have been your girlfriend in past life, and she's born as a ghost, and because you were angry with each other all the time, she's now possessing you, and you're hearing voices and that kind of thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's because of spirit interference. That's literally another being messing with you, climbing in your body and making you suffer. That's not an uncommon way that, according to Buddhism, that people suffer. So some people can actually have scrambled brains. Other people are literally hearing voices. So it's the presence of a very suffering being inside their body causing them suffering. So that's another whole component. People who are hearing voices. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Also, what would be an antidote for someone suffering on that wants to heal themselves?
Well, all the lamas, I mean, you go to your lamas who are very clairvoyant and they've got the power to be able to do certain things to help that being go away. Tibetan doctors can help. Certain practices the person can do themselves can help. Different kind of things. But sometimes it's so heavy. I know one friend of mine who was what they call possessed. She, no matter how much the lamas did, nothing made these beings go away. So she just lives with these beings inside her body. If you take this view as true, you know, so it can be very heavy connection. So it's the same thing. Like if you and I have an intensive relationship and we keep beating each other up and never leave each other because the karma between us is so strong. But we can also have karma, like, you know, your girlfriend gets reborn as a spirit. You've got the karma with her in just the same way, but she's born as a spirit instead of a human, and she harms you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there's lots of practices you can do, lots of practices. The lamas can have many things. Tibetan medicine can help. And this is not an uncommon thing. I've got people all the time talking, you know. People hear things in their dreams. They have, I'll call you back, Matt. It's teaching. Okay. Okay, no. So then, you know, yeah, I got distracted. I tried to turn the call off, but it came. So are we communicating here, Marcus? Good, darling. What else, you people? 1:45. What else? Nothing else? Well, it's all gone nearly. 15 minutes left. What do you want to do? What do you think, Rebecca?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Tally, go.
We're experiencing the results of actions committed in past lives. That's what the teachings say. So
including all our happiness, Tali. Every tiny good thing that ever happens to you second by second is the fruit of your virtue. You're non-lying, you're non-killing, you're non-stealing. We should be blissed out, but we forget about the happiness part, but just adding that in.
Yeah, of course. My question is, we have no awareness at all or memory of these past lives. So that's what I find really challenging about this teaching. So what's a helpful way of thinking about it without feeling like you're being told to take it on faith? Or, I mean, I know that it's just what the Buddha saw.
Yeah, exactly. I understand exactly, darling. The point is exactly correct. It's a totally appropriate question. Okay, let me use the analogy. You have no idea about you have no view of health. You have no concept of health. That's a possibility, isn't it? You understand my point, don't you? You have no idea what causes good health, and you have no idea what causes bad health, and it's just hit and miss, and you eat some things, and one day you get a headache, and next day you don't. You have no idea there's even a law that's called nutrition or health, as we know very well there is one. So then your doctor will tell you certain things. And then, of course, if you don't want to study it, if you have faith in that doctor, you'll do what she says, and you'll feel better. So it's a bit like that, but it's all there for you to learn. It's all there for you to learn. You can learn that system of health if it's based on not superstition and not bossing you around. It was based on logic and analysis, and she's discovered it. She can pass it on to you. And if you want to learn it yourself, you can. Exactly the same with karma. And eventually you will learn it. So here the same, when you're clairvoyant and you've got shamatha, you've got Singapore to concentration, you will then prove it. You'll be able to see it. And as you keep progressing more and more spiritually, you'll see it more and more past and more future, and eventually have an intricate wisdom that knows exactly why things happen. It's all there based on the Buddha's own direct experience, like the doctors. It's just a more dramatic level of wisdom, that's all. So in the beginning, like anything, you've got to have confidence in the doctor. You've got to do what she says, and you've got to have confidence, not just because she's cute. You'll first obey her wishes. Don't eat this and don't do that, Tali. Most of us will never study nutrition. We'll just do what we're told because we trust the doctor. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's all there for you to study if you want to. And with karma, as you progress, you will see it because you'll get clairvoyance. Your mind will get more intricate, more clear, more clear, and you'll be able to then see the truth of it. If it's based on truth, then you will see the truth of it. It's all there for you to learn. So it's like anything, you have to just learn it one step at a time. Initially, you take it as a hypothesis. That's the first point. But there's a more general point. There's a more general point. If it is true, botany is a great example. All the lamas use the botany. Buddha uses the example of seeds and fruits. So if you have confidence based on looking at the teachings and hearing about this Buddha and knowing he's not a creator and knowing that it's from his own direct experience, you have confidence in that theory, then you know that there is the law, it's all mapped out and he understands it all. And then he divides it into actions that cause suffering and actions that cause happiness. So the logic of a garden is that if there's a weed in your garden, you don't know what day you planted that weed. It could be 27 years ago. It could be 5 days ago. You don't know when you planted it, but the weed is the proof that you did. And it must have been a negative action because it's called suffering. And if a moment of happiness arises when someone's generous to you and gives you a gift, you don't remember what life you created that generosity in. It could have been 57 lives ago, but if it happens, that's the proof of the pudding. That's the fruit of generosity. So you can take a theoretical analysis that can analyze your present experience that will give you the reasoning behind it. If your skin breaks out in yucky things, you know it's because you ate too much chocolate. You don't need to know which chocolate caused which one. You get the general principle clear, and you know the learning is give up the chocolate. So there's principles in the beginning that are still based on logic that you can use, which is the basis we can use now because we're not clairvoyant. But as we go, we can learn it more and more intricately and eventually prove it to ourselves. What do you think?
That's a helpful overview.
It has to be this one, darling, because we're so used to thinking that religion, even though you just said the words, Buddha sees it as true, but that you should follow through with that and know that if he found it to be true, then it's all there for you. It's all mapped out. So it's up to how much you want to study it. Do you see my point? That's the point.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I may.
All we can do is use the logic we've got now, you know, based on this. If it's there, I must have planted it. Do I like it? No. Then if it's called not being believed, I must have lied. You can see by your experience. If someone never believes you, you know you must have lied. So you better make sure you purify it and start telling the truth. If you never get loans in the bank, it's because you've stolen. It's sort of an evident thing. The experience is sort of evident in a sense. There's only so many things that are going to happen to you. You get punched in the nose, you get lied to, stolen from, raped. There's only so many variations of being harmed, and there's only so many variations of being helped. and they eat the fruit of your actions. So you like the good ones, keep being generous. You like getting loan in the bank, keep not stealing. You like people smiling at you and they believe your words, keep telling the truth, keep being kind to people. So it's a fairly logical deduction, even at that level. You with me?
Yes. Thank
Good,
you,
Dr.
Robina. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Venerable Robina, there were a couple of questions like on Facebook and in the chat.
Good. You say
One of them is if what your view is if we should take the COVID vaccine.
I know, I wonder why. I don't know the reasoning why people are worried about vaccines. I just assume in my naivety that a vaccine is something created by a medical company that can prevent you from getting the sickness seriously. Isn't that what a vaccine is? Isn't that the meaning of a vaccine? You have to give me the background, because I know I hear all this fuss about it and I don't understand why people are fearful. I don't know why, so I can't answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, the other question, Facebook is...
The person wants to tell me though, but if the person who asked it wants to explain to me why there would be even a thought that you wouldn't take the vaccine. Well, no, maybe I'll just put it simply. Like anything, you do your research. If a doctor tells you that a certain medicine works, don't just believe them, check it out. So then my answer to you is use your intelligence and check out the vaccine and see what the history is and see what the reputation is and see if people have received it and have been benefited from it. Then on that basis, you decide. I think just use your common sense. That's all I
Hey,
say.
Venerable Robina.
Yes.
Vicky.
Vicky, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, for me, one question regarding the vaccine, it doesn't have anything to do with its safety or anything like that. It's the ethical consideration because it was tested on animals.
Oh, darling, I see, yeah. But I mean, everything's like that. There's nothing that we do or taste or touch or smell on this planet that I think hasn't come from the suffering of some sentient beings. I see your point, Vicky, yeah. No, I understand, but that's the awful part of our world, isn't it? But I don't think that's a logical reason. You know, because, like, you know, for example, you might not eat meat, but you might eat some wheat that maybe, as a, you know, to plant the wheat, they had to kill the mice that were there. So they slaughtered the mice to grow your wheat. Does that mean you don't eat wheat? No, it doesn't. I think you just have to have this compassion and recognize that the suffering of animals is pretty stupendous in our human life. And most things we have, food, medicine, have harmed animals. So have compassion, Vicky, have compassion, take the medicine with compassion and make the wish never to harm sentient beings as much as you can and try to benefit them. Then at least you can learn from it, Vicky. That's my advice. What do you think? Does that make sense?
It sort of does, but I feel very conflicted.
But you have to have a logic for it and you have to go past that. So, but what did you hear what I said about the wheat? Do you eat food? You eat food, right? But you have to know that little tiny creatures died, don't you? You surely know that. Or didn't you know that before?
Yes, I know that Buddhist argument, but it gets back to the intention and motivation.
Stop, Vicky, stop. Wait a minute. You know that little baby creatures died when you grew the wheat. Is that true or not, darling?
That's what I'm told.
But you know it because you know that little baby insects live in the ground, don't they?
Yes.
So then they must have been harmed when they grew the wheat or the flowers or the veggies. Would you agree with that, darling?
Probably, yes.
Isn't that the nature of the universe? It's what happens. It's the tragedy of the universe, isn't it? So does that mean you don't eat the wheat? Does that make you conflicted? And give me it's a good conversation. So I want to know what are the reasons you don't feel conflicted about that, but you are conflicted about taking the vaccine. I want to understand you, Vicky. So give me your logic.
Well, I think that implies a choice, right? Unfortunately, we have to eat.
No, that's not good enough. That's copping out. If you really, that's copping out, darling, because you know that is copping out. So, but no, maybe it's not copping out. It is copping out because you know you can. Okay, sorry, start again. Good. We are not advanced. You're not a yogi yet, Vicky. You can live in the mountains and live on the air. Some can. Okay. So given that we're not that, given that we have to eat because we want to survive, so we make it our motivation, darling, to survive so we can be a benefit to others, not just out of selfishness. And it's exactly the same logic for taking the vaccine. You know that animals were harmed. You have such compassion. You learn from that. And you know, I'm going to take this medicine so I can be healthy, so I can be a benefit to others. That virtuous motivation for eating the wheat and the virtuous motivation for taking the medicine will redeem to some degree the action for you, and you'll be able to use yourself and to be of benefit to others. That motivation is the most powerful. We have to be conscious, Vicky. This is the problem. And we have to recognize, we can't deny that everything we have, the food, the medicine, everything, it's harm beings, even if we didn't intend to, you know. This is the tragedy of the suffering of sentient beings, darling. What do you think, Vicky? More food for thought for you? What do you think?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vicky. That's really helpful. I didn't understand all that before. Thank you. What else there, Rebecca?
There was, oh, John,
John, go.
I was just going to make a quick comment.
Good, go.
Forgot at the end of which teaching, I'll find it, but His Holiness did answer a question very similar to that issue about,
what did you say?
About testing on animals. I believe it was more or less exactly how you phrased it, Venerable.
Yeah.
That if it's used with a focus on compassion, it is something that could be beneficial. And of course, you're right. You know, I actually am living on a small farm, not mine, but somebody else's. And
sure.
Even if you are vegetarian, it does involve harming sentient beings.
That's right. Yes,
so
John.
There's really no way around it.
No, that's right. So that's why it's so important. I think Vicky's point was good. Oh, we can't, you sort of said, well, we can't help it. That's a bit copping out in a way. We have to be conscious, Vicky, and thank you, John, that it is true that even walking, even driving harms sentient beings. So we can't just say, oh, well, I can't help it. That's copping out in that sense, but I think we've got to be aware of it, Vicky. Thank you, John, and be conscious that my actions do harm others. And this is inevitable. This is inexorable on this planet. It's even just breathing. Our body is a walking zoo, you know, we can't avoid it. So we don't just give up and become fanatic or depressed. We think, given this is the way it is, we're going to do everything we can with the best motivation to use the medicine, to use the food, to use the air, to be of benefit to others. And it's redeeming a bad situation, in other words. You can't make it perfect. So I think it's a really good point, John. And even I remember one time, because I think it tends to be we don't much care about all the bugs, you know, we don't think they're so important. But I remember one time, sure enough, some guy did research, I checked it, I Googled it, how many little bugs get smashed on cars. And it was something like per number plate, trillions of creatures per hour, per this, per that. So we can't avoid that. We can't pretend it doesn't happen either, but we have to be conscious of it. So Lama Yeshe, for example, when he was in California, he had a vehicle when he had to go shopping. He made them put mantras and mandalas all over the vehicle. So all the beings got smashed on those mandalas, the Lama Yeshe's view, they got blessed by the mantras. At least you can redeem a difficult situation, you know. That's the attitude to have. And then become very conscious, become very accountable that way. We do everything we can to try and have compassion and to do whatever we can to not harm, nevertheless knowing that so many beings get harmed no matter what, you know. That's the suffering of samsara. That's what Buddha says to us. It's time to go. Any more questions there?
There was one more question, Venerable Robina, from Facebook. It says, Venerable Robina, thank you so much for your teaching. That's a different one that just popped up. Venerable Robina, if you catch yourself having an unkind thought, but acknowledge it and change it, does that count towards purification?
Oh, I believe that's the best time to do it. That's a miracle. If you can do that every second, you become a Buddha in 2 minutes. Amazing. That's the quickest time to get it. It's like the second you notice you dropped a weed seed in the ground and you grab it immediately. Marvelous. That's the time to do it. That's the level of awareness we have to try and cultivate. We're watching our body and speech and mind like a hawk, and we're constantly doing the adjusting. This is the best. This is what daily practice is. More and more as we get more and more capable. Absolutely. Marvelous.
Venerable Robina, any tips regarding how to visualize during meditation to purify karma? From Francesca T.
Yeah, that's the visualize. As I said, the visualization means using your creative imagination to imagine that Buddha above your crown. All you can do is look at a statue, look at a picture, and then try and just repeat it in your head. I mean, you know, if you've only, you know, when you know your boyfriend very well, we're very good at visualization. We know every curve of his nose, every curve of his mouth. So you have perfect visualization because we see him, we're very familiar with him. It's the same here. And you do your best. Some people can't visualize. Don't worry about it. Imagine the Buddha's there. That's your mind that counts. If you can visualize, it's a bonus. But if not, just imagine the Buddha there. Imagine these things, want these things. That's what's powerful. As Lama Yeshe says, the power of purification is the power of your thoughts of regret, the power of your compassion and reliance, the power of your of wanting to purify, and the power of your resolve. It's the mind. Visualization is a bonus on top. Yeah, okay, people. Thank you, darlings. Gone like a dream. See you next week. I'm looking forward to it. Chang Chub Sem Chog Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam, Ke Gu Chi, Ke Pan Yam Pa, Me Pa Yang, Gong Ne Gong Du Pa. Well, that's the second one. So the first one is due to the merits. Merit means the positive karmic seeds we planted in our mind by listening to these teachings. May I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception to that enlightened state. How amazing. May the Supreme Jewel Bodhicitta, this amazing aspiration to want to benefit others that hasn't arisen in the mind anywhere, may it come and may it grow. And wherever it hasn't arisen in minds, may it, both things, and increase more and more. How amazing. What else is there? That's it. And then long life for our holy lamas and all the holy beings on the planet, all our lamas, as well as these, the wish-fulfilling jewel, wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single happiness and benefit in the world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. How amazing. And that was very kind. And lamas, and any other your lamas yourself, whom you've got. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please, please live long. Okie doke. Thank you, everybody. Much love.